welcome back to K-Talk. I'm Salma and today I'm here with
Najwa!
and we're talking about something that honestly doesn't get enough attention. That is government auditing and public accountability.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, when I first heard this was our topic, I thought that, okay, this is going to be dry. But the more I got into it, the more I realized how much it actually affects everyday life.
Right? Like people hear government audit and they immediately zone out. But this is literally about where your tax money goes and whether anyone's actually taking on it.
Exactly. And I think that's the reform people need. It's not just accounting paperwork, it's a system that's supposed to hold power accountable, and when it works well, it genuinely changes things.
So today we're going to cover the legal framework behind it. What auditing actually involves, some pretty interesting recent data from Indonesia, and then we're going to get into something that I think will surprise a lot of people. That is why a clean audit report doesn't always mean everything is fine.
Yeah, that part is going to be a good one. There's a real gap there that's worth unpacking.
Alright, let's start with the foundation first. What are the key regulations governing government auditing in Indonesia, do you think?
So, the two main laws are Law number 15 of 2004 and Law number 15 of 2006. The 2004 law covers the examination of state financial management and accountability. Basically, it defines what gets audited, the scope, and the process.
And the 2006 law is specifically about BPK, right? The Audit Board of Indonesia.
Exactly. The law established BPK as an independent institution responsible for examining how state finances are managed and accounted for.
And I think the word independent here is doing a lot of heavy lifting because if BPK had to report to the same people as auditing, the whole thing falls apart.
Completely. Independence is what gives the findings credibility. People can trust the result because there's no political pressure saving them. The moment you compromise that independence, you compromise the entire audit.
And then on top of those two laws, there's also Government Regulations number 71 of 2010, the Government Accounting Standards or SAP. This one doesn't get talked about as much, but it's just as important.
It really is. SAP ensures that financial statements across different government institutions are prepared consistently, so you can actually compare them and draw meaningful conclusions. Without that standardization, every institution could report differently and you'd have no way to evaluate anything fairly.
So it's like trying to compare test scores when every school uses a different grading scale. Technically, everyone passed, but you have no idea what that actually means.
That's a perfect analogy. Standards make accountability possible. So let's get into what government auditing actually is. At its core, it's an independent examination of government financial activities programs, government financial activities, programs, and operations. The fundamental question is, are public resources being managed efficiently, effectively, economically, and in compliance with regulations?
And there are three types of audits. Walk us through them.
So first is the financial audit, which evaluates whether the financial statements are fairly presented. This is probably what the most people picture when they hear audit, right?
Second is the compliance audit, which is less about the numbers and more about behavior. Are institutions actually following the laws and regulations that apply to them?
Right. It's essentially asking, are they playing by the rules? And then the third type is the one I found the most interesting. It's the performance audit.
Oh, this one is really different from the other two.
Yeah, it is. A performance audit isn't asking whether the numbers are correct or whether the rules were followed. It's asking whether the programs are actually working. Are the objectives being achieved? Is the spending producing real outcomes or something like that?
And that is such an important distinction because you can have a government agency that files perfect financial reports, follows every regulation, and still runs programs that deliver absolutely nothing to the public.
Exactly. Accuracy doesn't equal effectiveness. And I think performance audits are underutilized for that reason. They're harder to conduct, but they where the most meaningful accountability happens.
Because at the end of the day, citizens don't just want their money accounted for correctly, they want results. That brings us right into public accountability. What does accountability actually mean in a government context?
So it means that government officials have an obligation, not just a suggestion, but they have an obligation to explain and justify how public funds are used. And the bar isn't just we spend it legally, it's we spend it in a way that created value for society.
And I think that's where a lot of governments fall short. They meet the legal threshold but miss the spirit of what accountability is supposed to be.
Totally. Citizens expect roads to be built, schools to be improved, healthcare to be accessible, but audit findings give us objective evidence, not opinions, not political talking points, but evidence of whether those things are actually happening.
And when audit findings identify gaps, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's useful information.
Right, it's a signal from improvement is needed. The detection of function and the corrective function are both part of what makes auditing valuable. A finding isn't a value. Ignoring the finding is the value.
Now let's talk about what's actually happening in Indonesia right now. The recent data from BPK is pretty telling.
Yeah, so BPK's first semester audit summary for 2025 shows they completed 741 audit reports in total. Of those, 701 were financial audits, 4 were performance audit, and 36 were special purpose audit.
That's a huge volume of work, but here's what I think is the more important story. Completing audits and actually acting on the recommendations are two very different things.
And this is where it gets interesting. BPK reported in 2026 that the completion rate for follow-up actions on audit recommendations increased significantly, meaning more ministries and government institutions are actually implementing the changes that were recommended.
Which is genuinely encouraging because what's the point of a thorough audit if the findings just sit in a report and nothing changes?
Yeah, exactly. An audit recommendation with no follow-up is basically useless, right guys? The whole system only works if there is accountability at every stage, including after the audit is done.
So the trend is moving in the right direction. Stronger follow-through, better responsiveness. That feedback loop is starting to function the way it should.
And that's what builds public trust over time. Not just the audit themselves, but demonstrable evidence that the audit leads to action. And there is academic research that backs this up. A study by Rahmawati and College found that the audit findings are follow-up actions on BPK recommendation directly influence local government performance through the financial accountability.
So it's not just theoretical, there's measurable impact on actual government performance when institutions respond to audit findings.
Right. The research suggests that when the local governments genuinely engage with audit recommendations, both their accountability and their performance improve. It creates a virtuous circle.
Which flips the narrative a bit, right? Auditing isn't just a retrospective exercise, it's actually a driver of forward improvement.
That's a great way to put it. It's a management tool as much as it's compliance tool.
Okay, here's the part I really wanted to get to.
Okay.
A lot of government institutions receive a WTP opinion or an unqualified opinion, which is basically the highest audit opinion you can get.
Okay.
Your financials look clean, but corruption cases still happen. How does that make sense?
This is such an important question, right? And I think it confuses a lot of people too. A WTP opinion only tells you that the financial statements are fairly presented according to accounting standards. That's it. It's not it's not a certificate that says no corruption here.
So there's a real ceiling on what a financial audit can detect.
There is. Corruption can still happen through the collusion, abuse of authority, procurement manipulation, ghost project. Ghost project is like things that are structured specifically to not appear in the financial statement. And after the ghost project, there is also weak international controls create exactly the kind of environment where those things are thrive.
So you can have government institution that gets a clean audit report every year and still be mismanaging public funds in a way that audit simply isn't designed to catch.
Correct. And this is why accountability can't stop at accounting compliance. True accountability requires integrity from leadership, transparency in operation, effective oversight mechanism, and also a culture where ethical behavior is actually enforced.
The audit is one layer of protection, but it's not the whole system.
Exactly, and I think sometimes institutions treat getting a WTP as the goal when really it should just be the minimum baseline. There's a real example of this in Indonesia. Some local government have received WTP opinions but still had audit findings related to weaknesses in expenditure management and internal controls.
So the financial statement passed, but operationally there were still significant gaps.
Right, and that's exactly why follow up on audit findings matters even after you receive a positive opinion. The WTP doesn't mean the job is done. It means the financial reporting is sound. Everything else still needs to be examined and improved.
It's like passing a car inspection, but your engine is still making a weird noise. The inspection checked what it checked. It doesn't mean the car is in perfect shape.
That's a really good analogy. The inspection has a scope, and outside the scope, problems can still exist.
Let's shift to something that's changing the whole landscape: technology. How is digitalization affecting public accountability?
It's making a significant difference in a few days. Digital financial management systems make information more accessible and easier to monitor in real time. So, irregularities can be spotted faster and there's less opportunity for manipulation because there's a clear digital trail.
Okay. And it also changes the audit process itself, right? If data is already structured and accessible digitally, audits can be more thorough and more efficient at the same time.
Exactly. You're not spending weeks chasing paper records. You can actually focus on analysis and interpretation. That makes audits more meaningful, not just faster.
And transparency-wise, digitalization means citizens can potentially access financial information themselves. It's not just internal accountability, it opens the door to public scrutiny.
Which is ultimately what a real accountability looks like. It's not just government checking themselves, it's the public being able to see and question how their money is being used.
That shift from internal oversight to genuine public transparency is huge.
So, if we're wrapping it up, government auditing through financial compliance and performance audit is a foundational mechanism for transparency and responsible use of public resources.
And Indonesia is showing real progress. More follow-up on recommendations, better accountability rates, growing digitalization of financial systems.
But we can't lose sight of the limits. A clean audit opinion is important, but it's not the full picture. Government's quality, leadership integrity, internal controls, public participation, those are the part of what makes accountability real.
And I think the takeaway for government is don't chase the WTP. Chase the actual outcomes. Implement the recommendations, strengthen the internal system, and let the audit opinion follow from genuinely good governance.
Because the goal was never a good report. The goal is public trust and better services for people. The report is just evidence of whether you got there.
Perfectly said. Thank you, Najwa, as our guest, and thank you all for watching K Talks. This was a really fun one to dig into.
Yeah, I genuinely enjoyed it. See you next time. Bye
Bye-bye.